My sister Kate, who is 40 years old, has been dating Chris, who is 43 years old, for 2.5 years now. Chris has two sons, aged 14 and 15. Kate and Chris are now engaged, but ever since the engagement about 7 months ago, Kate has been unloading on me about the same issue. At first, I didn't mind her venting. I didn't even see the problem that I do now. However, it has become increasingly clear that this marriage will be a disaster because Kate wants something different from Chris and Chris's boys. Chris lost his wife when his youngest son was just born. He stayed single for over a decade, and when he and Kate started dating, he told her that not dating was very intentional and that he wasn't looking to replace his wife or give the boys a second parent or mom. He told her that if they got more serious and she was around his sons, it would not be as a mom or mother figure, and she needed to be okay with being dad's wife to his boys and not a mom. Kate said she was okay with that, and at the time, I really believed she was honest. But that has changed for her. She has talked about her relationship with the boys and how she feels like just dad's wife, how she feels like an outsider, and like the boys don't see her as a maternal presence in their lives. I mentioned a couple of times that Chris warned her about that, and she acknowledged it, but the boys don't seem open to an additional maternal figure. She said she feels like their grandmothers and their aunts fill that role, as well as other people's memories of their mom, but that they have shut down the idea of someone else filling it too. Kate hates it. She has tried to get closer to them, but she said they treat her like a roommate. They accept but don't want to be friends with. She doesn't feel like they value her or want anything from her. It bothers her. I have heard it so many times from her. She is trying to be more than dad's wife, but they don't want to know her. And Chris has told her directly that she is not their mother and that it's okay. I can tell she is looking for more than she is being offered, and the more they plan the wedding, the clearer that becomes. She was upset that Chris's boys didn't want to walk her down the aisle. She wanted to do some unity ceremony, or whatever they're called, where they claim each other as family to symbolize their new unit versus just the wedding ceremony. But they didn't want that. She keeps venting about this to me, and the more she vents, the clearer it becomes that this is not a workable situation. I have asked her if she has been honest with Chris, if she really thinks this marriage is a good idea. She keeps venting. Yesterday, she called me at work to vent, and I told her I couldn't talk. She ended up sending me a string of texts venting about the situation again. So, after work, I called her and told her I am not a therapist and I cannot keep listening to her vent about the same issue. Kate freaked out. She said sisters are meant to be there for each other and that I let her down. Am I the one in the wrong? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Using your kindest yet firm tone of voice, tell your sister the truth, that you'd like to help her and are there for her. However, you're not always available because of work, but also you're allowed to have some boundaries. And tell her that this sounds like a big problem and the support and answers you've been providing thus far are maybe not as helpful as she needs. So thus, an objective, professional therapist might be super helpful to her. Comment 2. Not the idiot. You're absolutely right. Your sister is talking in circles because she's hoping she'll wear you down enough to finally agree with her. She's in serious denial, but there isn't much you can do about it. Do not get in the middle. Stay so far out of it, you may as well be in Antarctica. Telling her you can't talk to her any more about this was the right thing for you. Ignorant is as ignorant does. Now, for the update. 2 days after my sister vented about her fiancé Chris and his sons, we gathered for a family barbecue at Chris's house. We were there to celebrate his youngest son's birthday, and I had my doubts about whether things would go smoothly. I wasn't really looking forward to it, given the vibe of the past couple of days, but I figured a barbecue could be fun. Maybe it would help take Kate's mind off things. Kate arrived early, like she always does, bringing a cake she baked herself. I could tell she was trying to impress Chris's sons, hoping it would help her bond with them. The boys, however, didn't care about the cake, choosing store-bought treats instead. I saw Kate's face drop for a moment, but she quickly hid it with a smile. During the barbecue, Chris's sons spent most of their time playing video games inside, ignoring Kate's attempts to connect. It was like she wasn't even there. She tried to get them to join her for a game outside, but they said they were busy. I watched as she stood there, trying to keep her spirits up, but it was really hard to watch. Chris noticed Kate's frustration and tried to reassure her, but his focus shifted back to the game with his sons almost immediately. It was like he was trying to check in on her for just a second before going back to what really mattered to him. I arrived later and saw Kate standing alone outside, looking in at the boys through the window. She looked so sad, like she was trying to make them notice her. I tried to lighten the mood by suggesting a family game, but the boys weren't interested at all. That's when Kate's frustration boiled over. She confronted Chris about the boys' behavior during the barbecue, and let me tell you, things got heated. Chris responded by saying he wanted the boys to have their space, which only upset Kate more. I could see her getting worked up, and I knew I had to step in. I suggested we all take a break and enjoy the cake, hoping to calm things down. Kate reluctantly agreed, but Chris's sons stayed glued to their games, ignoring the cake entirely. It was just so typical. After the barbecue, I suggested a family outing to a nearby amusement park. I thought it would be a good chance for bonding, and surprisingly, Chris agreed. The boys, however, hesitated, saying they had plans with friends instead. I could see the disappointment on Kate's face, but she tried to hide it. I proposed a compromise, suggesting they go to the amusement park on a different day. Chris's sons reluctantly agreed, but they insisted on bringing their friends along. That made Kate feel like an afterthought, but she didn't say anything. The day of the amusement park outing arrived, and Kate felt hopeful for a better experience. I could tell she was trying to stay positive, but I knew it was hard for her. At the park, Chris's sons spent most of the time with their friends, leaving Kate and Chris to navigate the day alone. Kate tried to engage with the boys, but she got short responses and dismissive attitudes. I decided to join them, thinking it would help Kate, but it was just more of the same. At one point, Kate confronted Chris about feeling like a burden. He seemed surprised and insisted he valued her, but still wanted the boys to keep their independence. I could see the frustration on Kate's face, and I knew she was at her breaking point. I suggested we find a quieter area to talk, hoping to resolve the growing tension. During the conversation, Kate bluntly said she couldn't see herself marrying Chris if things didn't change. Chris looked shocked, realizing how serious Kate was. There was a moment of silence, and I could feel the weight of the situation. A few days later, Kate called me and said she was taking a trip to visit our parents. She said she needed some time away to think things through. I could hear the uncertainty in her voice, and I knew she was struggling with what to do next. Edit. Kate's visit to our parents turned into a long conversation about her relationship with Chris. They were supportive, but concerned about the challenges Kate faced. She told them everything from her initial excitement about Chris's sons to her current feelings of isolation. My parents suggested that she have a serious conversation with Chris about her role in the family. They believed that clear communication was key. After discussing it with them, Kate decided to schedule a sit-down with Chris to address her concerns directly. She hoped this would lead to a better understanding between them and a potential resolution to her feelings of exclusion. Am I the idiot for wearing the sari I bought despite my fiancé's lies and my in-laws' disapproval? I am a 25-year-old Indian, and we have a ritual here. The wedding reception is held one day after the wedding, and in-laws give their daughters-in-law the sari they are supposed to wear for that particular function. I was well aware of that, and I have seen this happening since my childhood. My wedding is in 10 days, and the date was finalized back in February. I have a job, and I have invested my weekends shopping and planning most of the wedding. I bought my wedding sari in March, and on that same day I liked another beautiful Banarasi sari that I bought for wearing at the reception. I discussed this with my fiancé and asked him if his parents would be okay if I buy the sari. He told me I should go ahead and buy it, and his parents would be more than happy to reimburse me because they are supposed to buy that for me anyway. He gave me the money I spent for that sari, and I gave the blouse piece to my tailor so she could make a beautiful blouse for me. It was all sorted by May. Fast forward to today, my future father-in-law sent me a courier which contained the blouse piece of another Benarasi sari, and I was shocked to discover that they were not aware that I had already purchased the sari that I am going to wear for the reception. I bought my fiancé's suit in a contrasting color and bought my jewelry accordingly. But now, 10 days before the wedding, I found out my fiancé never told my future mother-in-law or father-in-law that I already bought it in March. I don't want to disappoint them by not wearing the sari they have chosen for me. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure it would be nice. But at the same time, I really had a vision with the sari I originally chose to wear for this function, and I am very upset right now that it will not be fulfilled. Would I be the bad person if I wear the one I originally planned to wear for this function instead of the one my future in-laws bought for me? Now for an update, I just got off a call with my fiancé, and he said it would be very complicated to talk to his parents now. I better wear the sari my future in-laws bought for me, and to make it up to me, he will purchase a new suit that will go appropriately with the sari. He will also go shopping with me again and bring the sari with him so I can find an appropriate blouse to go with it. P.S. I have not seen the sari yet. He said he will send a picture tomorrow. Also, I am heartbroken and in tears as I write this because I believe all this could have been resolved with some better communication. Now, for another update. Today my fiancé denied that he ever had anything to do with it and told me, "Who asked you to go ahead and buy it?" He also told me I should wear the sari his parents have chosen for me. I still haven't seen it. So, there you all go, people. I am marrying an unkind person, I guess. A lot of money has been invested, and I cannot call it off now, but I am very grateful for the support you all gave me. Best of luck to me. I will come back with another update after the reception. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Typical Desi husband. He'll set you up for conflicts with his parents and pretend he's on both sides equally. Age-old strategy to do the least while enjoying attention and power over both struggling parties. Do not stitch the blouse. Wear your sari. Otherwise, he and they will get used to pushing boundaries. Don't discuss this with anyone, not even the fiancé. Pretend ignorance about the new sari and let them be surprised when you wear your sari. Change the subject whenever the topic comes up prior to the wedding. If pressured, mess up the blouse deliberately so it's unwearable. Comment 2. I feel like your fiancé messed this up, so he should be the one to talk to his parents. I don't know those people, so I can't guess how they will react. Some people will just return the sari, others will get super angry or feel betrayed or whatever. You and your soon-to-be husband need to decide what's the right approach here. You will be the bad actor if you don't clear this miscommunication up and just wear your sari. Now, for the update. I'm a little over a month into married life, and I gotta say, it's been a ride. The wedding went off without a hitch, even with that whole sari fiasco. I wore the sari I wanted, which caused a bit of a stir, but honestly, I got so many compliments from the guests that it made it all worth it. The fiancé's parents were not thrilled, to say the least. They were polite during the ceremony, but I could tell they were unhappy. My mother-in-law made this snide comment about traditional expectations right in front of everyone, but whatever, I knew what I wanted, and it was my day. Our first family gathering after the wedding was a holiday brunch at the fiancé's parents' house. My fiancé insisted on bringing the sari his parents sent, saying it would be a nice gesture. I was like, "Are you serious?" But he really wanted to show it off, so I went along with it. During the brunch, my mother-in-law made a big deal about the sari in front of everyone, saying how surprised she was by my choice. I just smiled and nodded, trying to keep the peace. Then someone asked if we were planning to start a family soon, which changed the subject. I laughed it off because it was awkward, but my fiancé's younger brother had to chime in with that offhanded comment about how some traditions should be followed. Later that week, I got a text from my fiancé's mom asking if we could talk about family values. I had no idea what to expect, but I agreed and met her at a local cafe. When I got there, she dove right in, telling me how disappointed she was in my sari choice and how important it was to uphold traditions in the family. Things got heated fast. She said she felt like her son was being pulled away from the family, and I was like, "What? I just wore a different sari." Afterward, my fiancé could tell I was frustrated and asked what happened. I told him, but he got defensive, saying I should have been more accommodating. That sparked a bunch of arguments over the next few days. We were just misunderstanding each other left and right. My siblings suggested hosting a family dinner to bridge the gap and show my fiancé's family a different side of things. I thought it was a great idea, so I planned a dinner at my parents' house and invited my fiancé and his parents. The day of the dinner, my fiancé's parents showed up looking tense, but they were cordial enough. My family greeted them warmly and tried to ease the atmosphere with small talk. My mom even made my fiancé's favorite dish, so that helped a bit. During dinner, my fiancé's dad started sharing a story about their family traditions, and it really got the conversation going. I shared a story about my own family traditions, which got everyone talking about how we could blend our cultures. It was nice to see everyone's faces light up. The conversation shifted toward mutual interests, and laughter started filling the room. I could see my fiancé's parents relaxing a bit, which was a relief. At one point, my mother-in-law surprised me by saying she appreciated the dinner and the stories we shared. I couldn't believe it. As the evening went on, I noticed my fiancé's parents engaging more positively with everyone. It felt like a weight had been lifted. We ended the dinner making plans for more family gatherings, and I suggested a family picnic next month. Everyone was on board, and it felt good to finally connect. Afterward, my fiancé was so relieved that our families could connect. He said he was worried this would be a bigger issue. A few days later, my fiancé's mom called me to discuss plans for the picnic, and I could tell she was more open to collaborating. It's been a journey, but I'm hopeful that we'll all get along in the end. To answer a few questions, my fiancé and I did not have a prenup. The sari issue was the first major conflict in our marriage. My family and his family have different traditions, which is why the sari was significant. The first month of marriage has been challenging but ultimately rewarding. Am I the idiot for telling my girlfriend to use her own money for her girls' trip instead of our shared travel fund? My girlfriend, who is 27 years old, and I, who am 32 years old, have been together for 2 years. We moved into an apartment together about 2 months ago. We both like to travel, so we set up a shared account that we both contribute to, which we decided we would use exclusively for travel. When we set up the account, I was under the assumption that this travel fund would be used for trips we take together. It never even crossed my mind that it would be used for solo trips. But, apparently, my girlfriend thought otherwise. She is currently planning a girls' trip with some friends of hers. She was talking to me about the cost and said that there is just about enough in the travel fund for her entire trip. When we first set up the fund, we both individually deposited a fairly large lump sum to get the account started. I have set up direct deposits of a much smaller amount to go into the fund every paycheck. It's only been a few pay periods since I did that, but I know I have put more in there than she has because I have more disposable income. I brought it up to her that I thought this was a shared trip fund, not money that we would take out for individual trips. She said that she would replenish the fund with higher deposits after the trip to compensate for what she takes out. I told her I don't feel comfortable with that and that she should use her own separate money to fund her trip. She said that she wouldn't be able to go then. I told her that if she can't afford it on her own, she shouldn't go. I don't want to fund her solo trips. She got upset with me and accused me of not trusting her to replenish the account. I told her I do trust her, but that money should be used for shared travel only. I told her I know exactly how much I put in there, and I don't want my money used for her trips. I told her that it's partially my fault for assuming that fund would be used only for shared trips, but it doesn't make any sense to me that we would use shared funds for individual travel. I asked her if she would be okay with me draining the account for a boys' trip, and she told me as long as I replenish it, she would be fine with it. I said that if she wants to use the money she already put into that account for her trip, then she can take exactly that amount out. But I don't want her using any of my money for her solo trip. She accused me of being controlling and not wanting her to have fun on a girls' trip. She asked if I'm worried about her cheating, and I told her of course not because I trust her. She then asked what the problem is. If I trust her not to cheat, I should trust her to replenish the account. I told her that maybe setting up that account was a mistake and that I will just take my money out of the account and she can use whatever is left for her solo trip. She got mad and told me that I should be more trusting of her and that I am making her out to be a bad partner over nothing. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Take your money out of the account immediately. No one would reasonably assume that a shared account for trips would pay for solo trips. By the way, there are many types of infidelity, including financial. You aren't her sugar daddy to fund her friends' trips. You aren't her father to be paid back whenever she somehow comes up with the cash, or you eventually forgive the loan. Or her father for her to request another loan from you immediately afterward when she realizes that she now has no extra money for the next thing because she just paid you back. You need to each go back to separate accounts. If she has a problem with all of this, reconsider continuing the relationship. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Funny how only 2 months of living together, setting up a shared account for travel expenses, she decides on her own to completely deplete those shared funds for a girls' trip. I have to wonder, was this trip discussed with her girlfriends before or after the opening of the shared account? And who started that discussion? Now, for the update. It's been almost 2 days since the argument about the travel fund. I can't even call it an argument. Honestly, it was just a painful discussion. Sarah and I have been avoiding each other since then. It's not like we're ignoring each other, but we're not really talking either, just kind of going about our business. I decided to take a walk to clear my head and get some fresh air. I needed to just breathe. I walked past this coffee shop where Sarah usually goes with her friends. I didn't expect to see her there, but I did. I spotted Sarah sitting at a table with her friend Mia. They were laughing and looking relaxed. I tried to ignore it and just keep walking. I went home and distracted myself by watching TV. Anything to keep my mind off of things, you know? Sarah came home a few hours later, and the tension was so thick you could feel it. She tried to start a conversation about dinner, but I kept it short. I told her I would prefer to eat something quick so I could work on some personal projects. She seemed disappointed, but didn't push it. I don't know. Maybe she's just as tired of this as I am. The next morning, I found a notification on my phone from the Travel Fund app. I checked it and saw a withdrawal request for a significant amount. I was confused as hell and confronted Sarah about it during breakfast. She claimed it was for her trip and that she would repay it later. I was like, seriously? She should cover it with her own savings. Frustrated, she argued that I was making her feel guilty for wanting to enjoy life. I suggested we should reevaluate the purpose of the fund, but she snapped back. I felt like this conversation was going nowhere, so I just left for work early. At work, I shared the situation with a coworker who happened to have gone through a similar issue. He advised me to be firm but fair in discussions about money. That evening, I invited Sarah to sit down for a serious talk. I laid out my concerns clearly regarding the fund's original intent. Sarah felt attacked again and accused me of being controlling. I suggested a compromise, separate accounts for personal trips and joint experiences. She reluctantly agreed to this, but seemed annoyed. A few days later, we attended a birthday party for Sarah's sister. The party was filled with family and friends, creating a lively atmosphere. During the party, Sarah's mom jokingly asked when they would get engaged, which made Sarah uncomfortable. I tried to lighten the mood by making a joke, but Sarah did not laugh. After the party, Sarah confronted me about my joke, claiming I embarrassed her. I explained I was just trying to be funny and didn't mean to upset her. We ended up arguing in the car on the way home, expressing frustrations about each other's behavior. The next day, I found an email from a travel agency promoting group trips. I mentioned it to Sarah, suggesting we look into a trip together to reconnect. She hesitated, saying she was busy planning her own trip with friends. A week later, Sarah surprised me by suggesting we go on a weekend getaway together. We planned the getaway, and Sarah paid for everything from her personal account. During the trip, we enjoyed exploring the area together, and the atmosphere felt lighter. However, on the drive back, Sarah casually mentioned a future girls' trip again. I couldn't help but think about how I needed to set some firm boundaries about this travel fund. As we returned home, I decided it was time to bring this up calmly and clearly the next time we discussed finances. To answer a few questions, Sarah's withdrawal request from the travel fund was for a significant amount, primarily covering her entire girls' trip. She believed that replenishing the fund afterward was sufficient, while I felt she should use her own finances. We ultimately agreed to separate accounts for personal trips and a joint account for shared experiences. The birthday party incident heightened our ongoing issues, but a recent weekend getaway did help improve our connection, even if only temporarily. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.